For a long time, I've had my eyes on these BenQ monitors, but I've never taken the dive into one because it's not a drawing tablet, and even though they're designed for illustrators, animators, game designers, cinematographers, those type of people, the exact creative professionals who watch this channel, the core benefit here is color accuracy. And historically, that hasn't been something I've needed in my work, so it's something I've been a little bit more hesitant to cover. But in the space I cover over the last 2 years or so, we've seen more and more devices built for pros who need that high-end accuracy, those color specs, in their day-to-day workflow. Wacom has gone hard in that direction with their new Cintiq Pros. XP Pen has even been pushing that with their newer devices, like their latest 27-inch pen displays. And a lot of those folks are using a second display, and they want that second display to look as close as possible color-wise to the images that they see on their drawing tablets. Or maybe there's other people on your team who need to see the same accurate colors on their displays, and you're sharing those files back and forth. These sorts of things for some workflows are crazy important. And that's really who this monitor is for. I'll admit, it looks really beautiful on my desk. I love having a giant 32-inch 4K display on there, but I'm probably not the target market. I usually have a Samsung Ultra Wide behind me here, and if I move my work from my drawing tablet to my monitor, I usually don't care if the yellow is off a little bit, but some people do, and that's who this monitor is for. So let's take a look at what comes in the box. This comes to you factory calibrated, and that includes this little printout here with all of the details for you. You also have a quick start guide, some of the safety paperwork, that sort of thing. There's this heavy base plate for the stand. You also have some cords. You have a power cable, USB Type-C cable, a USB Type-C to A cable, an HDMI cable. Also has this wireless hotkey puck thing, which looks pretty cool. As I dug a little deeper, I got to part 2 of the stand, and then down below we have the display itself. The display is 32 inches corner to corner. It's also full 4K, like I mentioned a minute ago, and this has a matte coating on the top panel. It's subtle when the monitor is on, and this is to just knock down on glare. And this is an upgrade over the glossy monitor that I'm used to using. Even though my monitor is never in direct sunlight while it's here in my office, I get a lot of indirect light reflections off this wall here that I can totally see in my monitor. It's a big distraction. This monitor totally knocks all of that out. That matte coating is also pretty subtle as far as like what it does to the colors, the punchiness of the colors. Drawing tablets tend to have a rougher surface on them because they are designed to give the pen more grip while you're drawing on the screen, whereas this is just designed to give it like that anti-reflective coating. And because it's so mild, you don't see like rainbow patterns or slight RGB coloration around like text and things like that. What makes this monitor unique is its 144 hertz refresh rate. I don't know of anything at this size at 4K that also gives you that color accuracy at that refresh rate. It's more common to see like these 144 hertz refresh rate monitors in like the gaming space, but not in the design space. We have 400 nits of brightness here, a 1200 to 1 contrast ratio, and a 1 millisecond response time. There are also a bunch of predefined color spaces on here that you can use. You got sRGB, Display P3, DCI, PC, Rec 709, a whole bunch of other ones too. Now I got the monitor, I set it up in the first few days. I was just using it as a monitor. I wasn't really doing anything creative. I was writing a lot of scripts. I did some like odds and end video editing, some social media stuff. I think I was making some edits to my course, Learn to Draw in 60 Days. There's a discount code down below in the description if you want to check that out. It's aimed at beginners, so even if you're just learning how to draw, it's a great place to start. But one day at lunch, I was watching a YouTube video. It was on Simon Clark's channel, and it was beautifully shot. He had all these like miniatures of Earth, and he was placing them around, and the colors just screamed off this thing. They just really popped, and that was like the first moment where I was like, oh yeah, this is a really nice monitor. And then I just started looking for YouTube videos that would like push the colors on this thing. So it looks good to my untrained eyes. I think this thing is beautiful. The other place where this really shined for me, and I should preface this by saying this is not a game monitor. Do not get this just for gaming, but if you happen to have it and you want to game on it, it's pretty awesome. I had fun. I thought this worked great. Something I did not do is I did not fiddle with the color settings all that much. Out of the box, it is calibrated, and I thought it looked great. It looked fine for everything that this color noob needed to do with it. And I have experience with making more of a mess when I try to like mess with colors on a monitor than making something better. If you don't have a physical color doodad, you know, those little plastic pucks that stick to the screen that actually help you calibrate it, BenQ does have some apps that will help with that. The first one is called Display Color Talk, which is designed for multi-monitor setup, so you can get your colors to match from monitor to monitor using two displays at once. Now, the downside here is that only works with MacBooks, Mac displays, and other BenQ monitors. The other software app that they make is called Color Master Ultimate. And if you want to get the most out of this display and what you're doing with your color spaces, you'll probably want to check that one out. That is designed for those little hardware pucks that will scan your display. I guess at the end of the day, if you really want that hardcore color accuracy, if you want to match this to a drawing tablet, having a piece of hardware that helps you do that probably isn't a bad idea. Now, this is a fairly heavy, thick display. The pack and stand also pretty heavy, pretty sturdy. It's really going to hold this thing up, but it's still really easy to move this display up and down. It's easy to move it, tilt it left and right. You can tilt it up and down as well. I was thinking if I wanted to use this like next to my ultra wide monitor, my desk isn't quite big enough, but maybe I could tilt this like 90 degrees, get it into a vertical orientation. The stand lets you do that too. Now, there's a good amount of connectivity along the back of this thing. This has a Thunderbolt 4 port. It has an HDMI 2.1 port. It has a display port. Also has some USB ports here, making this monitor kind of like a USB hub. So here's what's kind of cool. I can daisy chain stuff together. So my XP Pen Artist 16, which lives on my desk back there, it lives full time there, it uses one USB Type-C cable that came from the monitor into the back of the tablet, and it just worked. It just worked. I powered it on, and it gave me the display and the data and everything. If I wanted to use this with my MacBook, one USB-C cable from the MacBook to the back of the display, and it works. And again, what's kind of cool about that is that cord also powers the Mac while it's plugged in. And then I took that XP Pen tablet and I plugged it into the monitor, and it daisy chained out, and it just worked. I was really shocked by this. When I put together these videos, oftentimes I will like block out time in my head. Like, I am going to test this. I will set aside a half hour to test that. I'll set aside an hour to test this. So for this, I was going to set aside like 2 hours to play with the daisy chaining thing because I thought this is going to be a pain in the butt. It's not going to work. And like within 10 minutes, I had it all figured out. It was really smooth. I think part of that is I got lucky because my hardware works with what they're trying to do here. Like my MacBook has an M1 Pro processor in it. If it wasn't the Pro processor, if it was just like an M1 or an M2 processor, I don't think the daisy chaining would have worked because it's not designed to support multiple displays like that. Same thing with my desktop computer. I just happen to have good hardware that can support this sort of thing through the USB Type-C cable. Although with that one, it wasn't one USB-C coming out of my computer. I had the HDMI cord that was running the BenQ monitor, and then I had a line, a USB Type-C coming out of that for data, and then another USB-C to the XP Pen tablet. As I describe it here, it sounds more complicated than it actually was. While I was going through that, I do kind of wish that the included USB Type-C cable was a little bit longer. For a laptop setup, it's just fine. I think it's a 3-footer, but you're talking about a giant monitor, and stretching that USB cable across the back of that monitor, it takes up that space pretty quickly. You know, with my desktop computer, I had to move that over, I had to move my monitor over, and even then it just barely reached around the back. Another foot on that cable would be nice. It's also worth noting that not any USB Type-C cable will work in this situation. The one that came with your phone to charge it is kind of garbage. Don't use that. You're gonna need something that can transfer power and data fast enough. I would look for something that does it at like 400 gigabytes of data transfer. Now, overall, I really did enjoy this monitor. There are a couple things, like the one knock that I would have against this monitor is the speakers. They just don't sound that great. Now, to be fair, I do have some crazy good speakers attached to my computer, so everything else kind of does sound like a pretty big step down, but these did sound a little bit more hollow, a little bit more boxy than my old Samsung monitor did. Another nitpick is that the viewing angles aren't like super wide. This is a much bigger deal when you're talking about a tablet or a phone or something that's not stationary, that's kind of moving around. That's when you really notice it. A drawing tablet, you really notice those viewing angles. A monitor, you're really sitting in front of, so you don't notice so much. But since it is so wide, like when I moved in on it, I could actually see the edges like kind of getting a little bit darker on me. So this is a monitor that suits you better if it is like set back a little ways on your desk. What about this guy? What about this little puck that it comes with? It doesn't do a ton. Basically, it controls the monitor settings. The one problem with changing anything on any monitor ever is that usually it has a little knob or a series of buttons and you don't know what any given button does at any time. We've all gone through that where you want to adjust the brightness of your monitor and you finally get to that menu, and when you hit the button to make it go up, instead it knocks you back to the previous menu. So that's what this thing is. This just makes it super easy to control your monitor. So you can set these buttons to different color things. So if you want to see what your image is going to look like in print versus the web versus that sort of thing, you can just set it on this dial and press the button and it's just going to do it for you. No messing around with those goofy monitor menus anymore. And the default on the knob is as you turn it, you can actually turn down the brightness of the monitor. Is that working? How low can you go? Oh, it's going down pretty low. Look at that. Anyway, a little too much fun with that one. So overall, I like the monitor. I like it a lot, but it's not for everybody. If you're not sure if it's for you, it's probably not. This is for people who will immediately look at this and say, oh man, changing color space is such a pain in the butt. I wish I had that puck. That'd be so nice. If you never adjust the color and contrast on your monitor, you're just not gonna need something like this. But what do you think? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.